The courts have now put the monkey on the back of the builder. So many builders don't know that. The law for many things in the U.S. is what we call caveat emptor. It's buyer beware. So if I sell Lisa a car and there's something wrong with it, well, too bad. She should have had it inspected, and it's a consumer-to-consumer transaction. Well, it's the opposite of that for home builders. It's not buyer beware, it's seller beware for home builders, and it's because they're building something that is the most expensive thing that most anybody will purchase. People get very emotional about their homes, and when something goes wrong, boy, what you really don't want to have happen is for the first call they make is calling their lawyer. When that happens, you're in a lot of trouble. The way that you prevent that is by doing your contracts correctly.
Welcome to the Builder Straight Talk podcast with your host, Michael Creasa. Get the unfiltered truth from the trenches of construction, real estate, and funding. This episode is made possible by our parent company, Sound Capital, funding built for builders.
Well, hey there, friend. Michael Creasa here. And in this week's episode, we're going to talk about risk. No, not the game you played as a kid, but the risks that are hiding in the weeds to take out your business. This week, I had the pleasure of sitting down with Lisa Hall and James Leach. They're with Maverick Risk. And most builders believe that if they have insurance, they're protected. Oh, no. Because according to today's guest, that's only one small piece of the puzzle. They help companies like yours, builders across the U.S., with profits, their reputation, and their balance sheet through a combination of insurance, warranties, contract alignment, and risk management strategies. Part of what these kids do is they actually go through your agreements to make sure they're ironclad, but more importantly, that you're protected and laying out exactly the structure that your buyers can anticipate. It also deals with the whole idea of litigation. How do you avoid the lawyers, and how do you get more into mitigation to alleviate that altogether? So some of the stuff that we talked about, why many builders mistakenly believe their insurance protects them from everything. Wrong answer. How class action lawsuits can cost builders tens of millions of dollars. That's becoming more and more prevalent. Class action suits. The 4 critical contracts every builder must align to protect their company. Why the bigger your company gets, the bigger a target on your back becomes, and much, much more. So, much more. I'm going to ask this one more time. I haven't asked it yet, but I'll ask it. With a simple click of your mouse, please subscribe, like, and share so much more builders, or many more builders like you, can glean the wisdom that we're trying to share here at Builder Straight Talk. And again, we have no advertisement here. It's just great conversations with professional builders and experts like yourself that can glean from this. So please, with the simple click of your mouse, subscribe, like, and share. And without further ado, let's jump into this conversation with Lisa and James. Well, James, Lisa, I want to say thank you for being on the call today. I'm really excited about having you guys here. And we're going to get into all things, I guess, insurance and risk management. I guess is kind of the undercurrent of what we're doing here today. And before we get started, how about a little bit of a backstory? Guys, tell me who you are, the company that you represent, and what is it that you do?
My name is Lisa Hall. I work for Maverick as a sales rep for Central Texas, but I pretty much sell in all territories. I've been working with them for 7 years, and I inherited the job through my mother, who had the job before me for 18 years. And before that, I did interior design for 10 years, audiovisual, high-end audiovisual for 8 years, and I was a real estate agent for 6 years. So, and then I just immediately got into this job, and it was wonderful. And so I've been calling on builders here in the Central Texas area now for over 16 years and pretty much know everyone.
Okay, so you told us the how you got into this, but what's the what that you do? What is it that you actually, when you unbundle your bag of goodies, is it that you try to sell to builders?
Well, I go at it at more of a relationship view of getting together with the builders, understanding their business, understanding their needs, and then trying to help them figure out what products and services are right for their business. I don't want to push anything on anyone that if you don't need it. It's truly a relationship business. And, I have builders that I've known actually that are my clients for the whole 16 years that I've been back in Texas. That's how I approach things with Maverick. Maverick has a wide variety of products that help builders with risk management. They help, insurance, warranties. They have I'm like losing my mind, a home warranty admin service. So it's all going to depend on what that builder needs. And that's
So
what I do.
this would be the perfect opportunity. You would be the wingman, and your commander, the pilot in charge right now, James, should jump in with his
Yes.
laser focus. Give us a bit of your backstory, James, and try to save the day here for Lisa. Give her the backup that she needs right
Yeah,
now.
save my day.
Well, she's got it. She nailed it. We're unique as a company in that we try to do everything that a builder needs to protect themselves, protect their profits, protect their balance sheet. And it's a variety of things. So insurance products, we offer that. We offer warranty products. We do a lot of contract alignment because a big thing about the home building business is you're in contract with your customers. And so you have the opportunity to avoid litigation. And if you can avoid juries, which will never be of your peers if you're a home builder, you certainly want to do that. So my background, I was an aviation lawyer first and then fell into construction about 2 or 3 decades ago. Loved it because it has a lot to do with contracts. Everything in aviation is a tort claim. It's all about losses and negligence and fatalities and headline news and so forth. Construction is a lot different. It's very complicated, but it resonated with me because I like it when uh, a home builder, it's like Costco. If you're familiar with Costco, the difference between them and Walmart is they're in contract with their customers, and so they can dictate the efficient dispute resolution. And that's what we try to do as a company. Is if there's a problem out there, we want to make sure that the builder is protected. They've got the right products and services there to try to take the really nasty things that can happen off the table.
So talk to me like I'm a 10-year-old that's been left at the job site with a hammer in my hand. And why is what you guys are, I don't want to say promoting, the services that you're providing, why would they be relevant to me as a production builder? And point number next, would it vary depending on the number of homes that I build? Like if I was doing 10 to 50, 50 to 100, 1,000 plus, is what you're offering more, what's the word I'm looking for? Would I need it more as I'm scaling as a production builder?
Great question. And yes. And let me just clarify what that means. So, all builders need it for different reasons. So, a smaller builder would be interested, for example, in a warranty product because if there is a construction defect claim down the road and it's $100,000 or $500,000 claim, that'd be a very material hit to a 5 or 10 home builder. A $50,000 or $100,000 claim is not as material to a production builder, a very large builder. So, what is their biggest risk? And Lisa and I would say that that would be exposure to class actions. Well, class action is a really big deal in the United States. It's gotten a lot worse. And there have been some classic cases that have happened in the last several years, some that big builders have lost, some that they've won. And it's possible if you are a home builder, if you elect what's called the Federal Arbitration Act, which has been around for 100 years, and a home builder can use it because they're deemed to be interstate commerce. In other words, they're not just a Texas company or they're not just a Georgia company. They're getting products and supplies and stuff from all over the country, all over the world. So they can use the Federal Arbitration Act. It was passed by Congress in 1925, the last thing the U.S. Congress did that was worthwhile 100 years ago, but it's been great. That law has been to the U.S. Supreme Court at least a dozen times. And as of 2019, 9-0 decision, U.S. Supreme Court. If you have Federal Arbitration Act in your contract with your customer, you will arbitrate it. You can't litigate it. take that to another step, the last U.S. Supreme Court in case January of 2019, the question was Federal Arbitration Act, 9-0 decision. 4 months later, the question to the U.S. Supreme Court was if you have class action waiver language along with the Federal Arbitration Act, does that mean that homeowners cannot join a class? And the U.S. Supreme Court, 5-4 decision, it would be a 6-3 decision today, said yes. If you have the Federal Arbitration Act and the proper class action waiver language, you can't join a class, meaning if there's a big, big problem, and I can give you an example of that if you want down the road, a big case in Florida, which jumps on this, you can't join a class. You have to individually arbitrate any dispute. That's a huge thing for builders because if you get roped into a class action lawsuit, I know of cases that have cost large home builders $16 million in one, class action case in South Carolina with 220 former homeowners. But if you do your contracts right, you completely avoid that. You can't join a class. You have to individually arbitrate a dispute. And so all of that terrible litigation, expensive, uncertain outcome, terribly, ruins your business, ruins your reputation, takes all that off the table. So in my world, the big thing about large builders is you want to avoid things that can ruin your balance sheet, ruin your reputation. The biggest one of those is a really nasty piece of litigation. Do your contracts right. We'll show you how to do that. You can keep that from happening.
Okay, so that prompts two questions here. So again, as a production builder, are you saying that the insurance that I have currently doesn't protect me from a situation like this where I can find myself into a class action? And the best way to mitigate that is to have a proper sales contract already in place that highlights that. And I guess that acts as a corporate veil, if you will, another layer of protection for me.
Well, insurance products are really not going to cover. They're not going to cover for class actions. They're not going to prevent class actions. So let's take a general liability insurance coverage. That will cover for bodily injury claims, for resulting damage claims, and so forth. The way you protect yourself, though, from class actions is with good contracts. And yes, it starts with your sales contract, but it needs to align with the warranty contract because you think about it from a builder, they have two contracts typically, with a homeowner, the sales contract and the warranty contract. If both of those contracts say that dispute resolution is Federal Arbitration Act and you can't litigate, and if they both have class action waiver language, you have probably taken that off the table. Insurance contract is a contract between an insurance company and the home builder, but the homeowner is not a party to that contract. The homeowner is a party to the warranty contract. So that's a big part of it is, and it's a big reason for our success. We provide a warranty that we drafted. The builder didn't draft it. And courts in the U.S. don't like it if you have a self-serving contract and you're trying to protect your balance sheet and you prevent litigation. Some courts will look at that and say that you have disenfranchised the homeowner, and they don't like that. But if it's a third-party warranty contract that we drafted, the production builder did not draft it, that's going to be enforceable. So if that contract lines up with the sales contract, that's the way you take litigation and especially class actions off the table.
So is it fair to say that you guys are, I don't want to say the referee, but you're the conduit if something arises between me, the builder, and the consumer's lawyer that's coming after me with their teeth clenched?
Yes.
And you also referenced a case study. Can you give us an example of, here is a scenario that happened, and let's say it's a production builder, arbitrary, let's just throw up, they're around 200 homes, and what a class action would look like.
I do want to say, depending on what type of product you get, what type of warranty you would get, depends if we would be the conduit or not. Sometimes it's just we're giving the contract to the builders, then they distribute the warranty themselves, and they're self-warranting. And then other warranties, it's an insured backed warranty. So meaning that we take care of it and we would be the conduit.
So the builder can transfer risk to us, as Lisa said, or a lot of builders will use our warranty product because they like the document, but they will take the risk themselves. So whether we are the intermediary in helping resolve disputes would depend, but many times, most of the time, we are.
Putting this into context that you would appreciate, James, as a builder, let's say once upon a time I was a framer, the typical ascension framer, bunch of guys get together and they say, hey, I can be doing this. Why aren't we building our own places? And they start, maybe they're doing 1, 2, 3 a year. It starts to scale to 10 to 20 a year. And before you know it, they're doing 100, 200 homes a year. At what point do I even know, and you as a fighter pilot would appreciate this, that you're even on my radar? Like, how do I even know that you guys exist? And what's the why behind why I would need you? What's that tripwire that would make me think about you guys in the first place?
If you back up and do just a little bit of history, go back to 1955. What did it cost to build a new home in the United States in 1955?
10, 15 grand?
Try $7,000.
Close. I bought 2 houses.
Yeah, but you're in the ballpark. So in other words, homes were, a relatively inexpensive thing to buy. It's a little more than a car, but, reasonable price. Well, fast forward to today, and, homes are, average in the U.S. $400,000. You have many, many $1-million homes. Well, the courts have looked at this over the last several decades and have looked at it case by case, state by state. They've done these court cases that we refer to as implied warranty laws. So what the courts say now in Texas or Georgia or Florida, wherever you are, and I have a book that lays all of this out, a summary state by state. The courts say that if you build it, you have an implied warranty obligation on everything you build, whether you like it or not. New home, remodel, doesn't matter. If you build it, you're on the hook for it. And not for a year, but you're on the hook from now to the end of the statute of repose, which is 7 years in Texas, 8 to 10 years in Georgia, 5 years in Tennessee, 15 in Iowa. So it averages maybe a decade, across the country. So the courts have now put the monkey on the back of the builder. And it's interesting you ask this question because so many builders don't know that. The law for many things in the U.S. is what we call caveat emptor. It's buyer beware. So if I sell Lisa a car and there's something wrong with it, well, too bad. She should have had it inspected, and it's a consumer to consumer transaction. So it's buyer beware. Well, it's the opposite of that for home builders. So it's not buyer beware, it's seller beware for home builders. And it's because they're building something that is the most expensive thing that most anybody will purchase. People get very emotional about their homes, and they, when something goes wrong, boy, what you really don't want to have happen is for the first call they make is calling their lawyer. And particularly if it's $1 million home and they've got their lawyer on speed dial. When that happens, you're in a lot of trouble. The way that you prevent that is by doing your contracts correctly. So yes, you want to buy insurance, you want to buy a warranty product and so forth, but you need to align your sales contract and your warranty contract. You need to have a good subcontractor agreement, sending exposure there and so forth. Now, to get back to a question you asked about 5 minutes ago, is there a case example that I can give you? Yes, there is. There's a great case that I use in my seminars all the time. It's a Florida case against Lennar. Some plaintiffs' lawyers, headed by a firm called Morgan and Morgan. We know them well in the U.S. Don't know if they're in Canada, but they're a big deal here. Morgan and Morgan got together with some plaintiffs' lawyers and found an HOA, a homeowners association, and about 300 homeowners went after Lennar in a class action lawsuit. This was, 3 or 4 years ago. Lennar lost the case at the trial court level, and they appealed. We helped them with their appeal. And on appeal, the appellate court said, no, Lennar, you have done your contracts correctly. And all of you individual homeowners are the real parties at interest here, not the HOA. And you're all in contract with Lennar. You all have the Federal Arbitration Act. And so the class action was dismissed, and every one of those people had to individually arbitrate against Lennar. Only a handful did. And the class action went away. So a big, big win, big case. That's Florida. There have been a lot of class actions across the country. Some I know that didn't go so well, that cost builders an awful lot of money because they didn't do their contract work exactly as they should.
Is there a typical scenario? I'm trying to wrap my head around what would motivate, if you will, or constitute a class action where a bunch of home sellers get together. So would it be like in a planned community where there was some major fault that happened, like homes start settling, basements start cracking? Is there some sort of commonality, if you will, that is starting something like this? Or is this just a bunch of savvy lawyers that are getting together looking for an easy score?
Well, that's what I would say. I would say the commonality there is the resourcefulness of plaintiffs' lawyers. They will go to a community and they'll say, look, that roof doesn't look quite right. Those doors aren't working quite right. The siding, we don't like that. We don't like the way the windows look and so forth. They'll then use the association. They'll use social media, get a bunch of people all riled up. And next thing you know, they go in, and this happened in South Carolina, the case I referenced earlier that cost a very large builder $16 million, 200 former homeowners. The lawyers went in to this community and said, look, there's a whole bunch of mistakes here. Sign here, sign us up as a lawyer, and give us about 6 months and we'll bring you a check for $100,000 or whatever. So they got 16.1 million for 200 homeowners. The lawyers got about half of it, and the rest of it, goes into the pockets of the homeowner. So it's typically the lawyers that will be looking at various things that they'll say isn't quite right. And if it's not right with this home, it's probably not right with 15 other homes. And so they'll try to not have one case, but a class action case, and those can get real dastardly.
And I definitely think that the production builders are more vulnerable to this because they'll
Yes.
go into neighborhoods and then they'll start door knocking in the neighborhoods. And usually with these neighborhoods, it's say a particular builder's name one after another. And that's what they're looking for. They're looking for where the bigger money is.
It's too easy if you think about what Lisa just said. Go to the neighborhood, sign up, 300 homeowners in there. How do you keep that from happening? Well, you keep it from happening if you have an enforceable contract with each one of those homeowners that says if something goes wrong, they can't join the class. They have to individually arbitrate the dispute with the builder. That's enforceable all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And so that's one of the angles that we look at to try to do the best job we can to protect the balance sheets and profits of home builders.
So it sounds that, again, being the naive 10-year-old here, I've graduated from being 6. That's what I usually say. Denzel Washington's line, talk to me like I'm 6. It's more than buying insurance. You're actually now at the next level where you're trying to strategically manage risk. Assessment is basically what you're doing. You're managing risk.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And that comes in several different layers. So insurance, you mentioned earlier, very important. You got to have it. General liability, builder's risk, workers' comp, auto, you need all of that. You also need a warranty contract, and you really want to transfer that exposure. But in addition to transferring the exposure, that contract aligned with your sales contract and working with your subcontractor agreement, if those contracts line up, you've then done a really good job of building what we call a contract firewall to protect your business and keep, the really nasty things from happening to you.
And on top of that, we actually do a risk management evaluation of developments and larger builder projects before they pour the foundation, before they start developing. We can actually go in and review with our engineering team and make sure that there's no red flags for that area.
How is the builder protecting himself from the trades that they use? You just triggered a question here. So let's say I'm doing 10 homes. Okay, so I've got everybody lined up, and as you know, economies of scale, it makes more sense to keep my teams working as opposed to when banks say, "Hold it, you can only do 2 homes. Once those are done, we'll advance you for the next." But some lenders like Sound Capital want to see you scale. So let's say I've got 10 going down, and my team that's putting in the ceramic tiles have used the wrong grout, if you will. Now the tiles are popping up. Is that on me? How do I protect myself from the fact that I didn't do that? These are the trades that I'm relying on. So is that an insurance thing, or is that a risk management thing? Where does that come in and under the umbrella of coverage that you guys are offering me?
Well, great point, and there are layers to that. So first layer would be if you're a home builder and you're dealing with subs. So your typical home builder will sub out 80-90% of their work. You want to have a really good contract with those subcontractors. And it doesn't need to be 10 pages long. It could be 3-5 pages long, but it needs to require the subcontractor to carry insurance to indemnify for mistakes they make and so forth. So that's a really important thing. Deal with quality subs and make sure you have a contract with your subs that they're responsible. Then you need to make sure that those subcontractors buy the proper insurance, general liability insurance, workers' comp, auto, and so forth, because if there's a loss and they're really responsible for it, you want to make sure they and their insurance companies cover that. Well, what if they don't? Another very important angle that we look at is to make sure that home builders have the insurance coverage so that they're covered even if the sub is not. So if a subcontractor does something wrong, there's a big mistake in the house, very likely that claim is going to be, the home builder is going to be vicariously liable for that on the hook as well. So you really want the contract with the subcontractor to lay out the responsibilities. You want the subcontractor to have insurance for what they do, but you want the home builder to have insurance as kind of an umbrella over that so that if they don't have coverage, and you'd be shocked how many times they really think they have coverage, but they don't. Even if they don't, you've got your insurance covered as well. And this is not, Jake from State Farm insurance that we're talking about. This is construction insurance, which is very complicated. It's a commercial line of insurance, and it's nothing wrong with State Farm, but they're a personal lines company. So it's a real specialty area of understanding construction, understanding the risk, and how you really protect them.
Do builders typically ask for the paperwork in advance from their trades? Do they actually thoroughly go through it? And how do I say this politely without offending? Are there situations where the trades, I don't want to say lie, but maybe exaggerated about the policy they had, or didn't even realize that their policy is lapsed? What happens then?
Yes. Well, you'd be surprised how many fake certificates of insurance there are out there where they'll white out a date or white out a coverage limit or make it up, and they'll provide, a certificate of insurance for insurance that really doesn't exist. That does happen a lot. It also happens that you get a real certificate of insurance that'll have limits on it and so forth. But that certificate of insurance doesn't give you the detail. It doesn't give you the exclusions that are applicable. And there's so many insurance companies out there that will insure a subcontractor, but they will exclude, let's say, residential construction. So in other words, they give them an insurance policy, you get a certificate of insurance, but they've really got no coverage. So it's a complicated area, because if you're a production builder, you're dealing with 10, 20, 100 different subs. You don't really read all of their insurance policies, but that's the only way you find out whether it's really good coverage or not. So there are some tools and some techniques out there to help monitor that. That's part of what we do as well. We have some subcontractor compliance tools that we work with, because that's a big exposure area for home builders.
So that typically, James, when you and Lisa show up, do you review all my documentation, like my sales contracts? You make sure you're going to tell me what's missing. You're going to tell me what I don't know that I don't know. and then ultimately you're going to craft something that covers me, then I guess in a deeper dive, you're also going to make sure that in this situation, working with the trades, that I'm covered there as well. So I guess the question is, at what point am I no longer, I've outgrown my insurance. Now it's about risk avoidance, risk management. Is there a sweet spot? Like, is it about geography, number of homes that I built? At what point have I matured to the point where now I have to really take a deep dive? And this is one more thing that's going to keep me up at night.
Right. Well, geography is a big one. I mean, Austin has a lot of foundation failures for our city and certain parts of Dallas as well. There are different parts of the country that have almost no foundation failures. So it just really depends on your risk in that area. And then it's also going to depend on you as a company and how much you're willing to pay out if there was a potential issue. And so we find that like even on your applications for builder's risk, I mean, you have a $1,000 deductible, you have a $2,500 deductible, you have a $5,000 deductible, and each one is going to dictate how much you're going to pay for that particular policy. It's the same thing in warranty and everything else that we do.
So to your points there, you said geography. Yes. I'm in Georgia. Lisa's in Texas. I mean, the rates in Texas are probably 3 times what they are in the state of Georgia, but it's because of the soils. And it's part of what we need to look at. We have risk management engineers on staff that are very well versed in different states and different soils. About half the state of Texas just has bad soils. They've got real foundation issues there. Scale is also a big thing. So if you're building a couple of homes a year or 2 or 3 homes a year, you're not as concerned about class action lawsuits. When you're building 100 homes a year or 1,000 homes a year, that's the thing that I would be concerned about most. What can hurt me most as a company, and how do I best protect myself? And I mentioned early on, the Federal Arbitration Act, which was designed by Congress to address litigation that was getting out of hand 100 years ago. Been good law in the U.S. for 100 years, still works, enforceable. Home builders, thankfully, can use it. They're in contract with their customers. Can't overemphasize how important it is as you grow and get to be a production builder. You've got those contracts aligned. You've got good insurance coverage. Your contracts with your subs are good. Your sales contract and your warranty contract are all aligned. And one of the things that Lisa and I talk about a good bit is, if you think about it from a builder standpoint, there's really 4 contracts that are pivotal to protecting them: sales contract, the warranty contract, subcontractor agreement, and the insurance contract. So if you do those 4, and Lisa and I spend our life doing this, looking at these contracts, looking at the alignment of all these contracts. Because if you've got a good purchase and sales contract, doesn't have to be too long. It could be, 10, 12 pages is okay. If you've got a good subcontractor agreement, 5 or 6 pages is okay. Doesn't need to be 20 pages. If you've got a good warranty contract, that's probably 20, 25 pages, but it's easy enough to read. And then your insurance contract, that's a godforsaken contract. They can be 150 pages long with 100 plus exclusions. So that gets very complicated to read. And you'll want somebody who really understands the lingo to help you read it to make sure what's covered. Because there are some, I mentioned earlier, there's some insurance companies out there. There's one that has the name auto in their name. And they're pretty good at writing autos. They write a lot of builders, and they shouldn't, because they give them an A-rated insurance policy, but the coverage in it is not very good. And you'd only know that if you've got a pro out there reading your contract, looking at the things they should be looking at.
With all the years of experience that you kids have under your belt, is there a hard truth that production builders need to hear but don't want to hear about insurance or about risk?
I personally, from what I've seen, from the production builders that I've worked with is that they think because they're so large that they're pretty much untouchable. And they've done some pretty shady things that I've seen, to clients. Well, times are changing, and we are definitely seeing that they are touchable. And so I would just, make sure that they're protecting themselves, again, with contracts and warranties and all of those other things.
I absolutely agree with that. The large production builders should be aware that they have name visibility. Plaintiffs' lawyers know who they are. Everybody knows who they are. If you talk about D.R. Horton, Lennar, Pulte, the big builders, everybody knows who they are. So they've got name recognition. With that comes exposure and vulnerability. And Morgan and the big plaintiffs' law firms, they know who they are. And when they make some mistake there, you don't want it to be easy to get after those builders. So just to give you another interesting data point, 30 years ago in the U.S., there was a McDonald's case where a nice little lady drives through the drive-through at McDonald's, spills coffee on her, got burned. Remember that case? 30 years ago, cost McDonald's $3 million. So it was 300,000 in compensatory damages, 2.7 million punitive damages, $3 million. Last year, we had exactly the same case happen, and it was Starbucks. It was a drive-through at Starbucks, spilled coffee, burned. What do you think the case costs 30 years later? $50 million. So I mention that so that, juries in the U.S. have become completely nuts. There was a case happened about a year ago in Florida. A semi truck rear-ended a car, real bad loss, bad injuries, and so forth. The jury came back with an award of $1 billion. So the reason why I say this is when you get into litigation, it's never land. You don't know what's going to happen, don't know how long it's going to last, have no idea what a jury is going to do with it, except it's probably going to be bad. You're not going to have a jury of home builders. It's going to be a jury of homeowners. Don't want anything to do with that. So the light bulb for me, if I'm a big builder, I know I've got a big name. I've got a big target on my back. The plaintiff's lawyers know you've got a lot of money. They know you've got big limits on your insurance policies. The advice we would give is align your contracts, do your contracts right. Don't allow yourself to get dragged into litigation, especially class action litigation.
Yeah. I would sit them down, make them watch that movie, Too Big to Fail. That would be a cold dose of reality right there off the top. You opened the door about the McDonald's case. Before we move on from that, I remember that case, and not to make light of it, she got first-degree burns on this,
Yeah.
required
Yeah.
skin grafts, and
Right.
it was like devastating.
Right.
I don't want to say the upside to that, but the ramification after the fact was that the press tried to belittle it as,
Yeah.
oh, you spilled coffee on your lap, which then opened the door for tort reform and lobbyists to step in to make this kind of litigation go away.
Yeah.
Did that actually go through? Because again, that's on the American landscape versus what I see here in Canada. But that actually happened. They tried to class this or categorize it as frivolous cases, if you will. Did they succeed?
Around the country, off and on, there's been a lot of tort reform. It's happened in maybe about half the states, and it really is trying to put a lid on what's reasonable and what isn't reasonable.
I guess you'd call it frivolous litigation versus substantive litigation.
That's right. Well, when she got burned, that wasn't frivolous. She did get burned badly, and skin grafts and so forth. It was a difficult case. Is it worth $50 million? Well, I would argue that's a little over the top. The auto case that I referenced in Florida that happened a year or so ago for $1 billion was a very bad case. It was a distracted driver driving a big rig, and it was really, really a bad case. But $1 billion, the trucking company had an insurance policy with a limit of $1 million in it. So the point is, Our point to builders would be efficient dispute resolution is advantageous to home builders and to homeowners. That's what you really want. If you've got a problem, if you've got an issue out there, let's resolve it through mediation, arbitration, get it resolved, get the home fixed, take care of it. Don't get dragged through a court case, for 10 years that may cost, $16 million as the one did in South Carolina. Try to avoid that. Be responsible, take care of your homeowner, take care of your reputation. If you get sued, it's public. If I get sued, it's public information here in the U.S. Arbitration's private. So if you're a homeowner, you don't want anything to do with that bad press. So there is.
Yeah, that wouldn't make for a good marketing postcard. We've been sued and won. No, probably not. Let's pivot here for a second, James and Lisa, and let's talk about the devil's in the details, right? So definitions, if you will, because I guess there can be misconceptions to what a word means in context of what you're doing with insurance and liability. Tell me about captive insurance, like in plain English, and this time you are speaking to a 6-year-old. What does it mean from a production builder's point of view?
Many of the large production builders do have their own captive insurance company. And if they don't, we can talk to them about that and help them set that up. Captive insurance company really means that they own their own insurance company. And so part of the risk, probably not all the risk, but part of the risk would be assumed by a separate operation, a separate captive insurance company. Now, you got to be really careful with that. It's state regulated, not federally regulated. And it has to be done correctly with the right books and records. It needs to be arm's length and so forth. Otherwise, the IRS is going to say it's really self-insurance and it's not tax deductible. If you do it correctly and set it up as a separate entity, do the right books and records and deal with the state regulators and so forth, it can then just be part of your insurance that you pay, and you pay a lot to your own captive insurance company and not to the commercial market. So it's a very smart thing to do, but you can't cut corners on it. You've got to do it right. And if you do it right, then the IRS will acknowledge that it is a properly run and set up risk-taking insurance company, and that will work. If you don't do it right, they're going to say, it's basically just fancy self-insurance, no tax deductibility.
Is there a point in a builder's evolution, and I keep referring back to that tripwire, that when I step across this line, now this is something I should seriously consider? And what's the impact to my bottom line? Because builders are always concerned about bottom line. Did the two go hand in hand?
Yes, definitely. Especially when, as a builder's growing, as far as captive goes, it just really depends on how much they're bringing in. When they're getting to that 50 million mark, when they're getting to higher value amounts, then it would be probably best interest to them to start investigating it. It does take years to kind of get it set up and for all of it to working perfectly. And you want experts helping you, such as Jim. Jim's great. And as far as tax deductions, they could potentially use that against their business to help with their taxes. So there's a lot of value in it. I'll let Jim speak about it.
It really has to do with risk tolerance. So if you're a small builder, you're building 1, 2, or 5 homes, you're going to want to buy insurance. You're going to want to transfer the long tail warranty exposure to a warranty company and so forth, because you can't afford a $500,000 loss or $1 million loss. If you're a large production builder, your risk tolerance is going to go way up, and you have the ability to assume a lot more risk. You can take a $100,000 insurance deductible or a $500,000 insurance deductible and feed that into your own captive. In other words, you're a larger company, you can take a lot more risk, and you typically want to do that. You don't want to be trading dollars with insurance companies if you don't have to. Take as much risk as you can, and then just buy the commercial insurance for the risks that you can't take. That changes a lot as you grow up as a company, obviously.
So another term, parametric. protection? How does that help me against rate spikes, increases in lumber, materials? Is that what that's meant for?
You're
I'm
talking
not,
about in your sales contract?
Yeah, just that term, parametric.
We call it an escalation clause over
Okay.
here. Yes. And
Right.
you definitely want that.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's happened a lot in the last few years when builders and it's another thing I would say is for home builders, you want to be sure that you're dealing with experts, lawyers, insurance people, warranty people, people that really understand construction. Because lawyers who work with home builders and construction contracts, they will understand escalation clauses and force majeure and all the kind of and the right to repair laws and all the things that you really need to have in your sales contract and what needs to be initialed and what should be in bold font and so forth. So you want to deal with, in every respect, deal with somebody that understands construction.
It makes sense because it's almost like you're speaking a completely different language. And you want somebody that's, again, getting back to what we said earlier, the devil's in the details. You want
Right.
somebody that meticulously understands those details. And more importantly, has been down that road before so they know what to look for, as opposed to
Exactly.
looking in their rear view going, oh, we barely got away with that one.
Yes. Well, it's like pre-flighting an airplane. So you got to pre-flight your airplane. If you get to 10,000 feet, it's too late. Same with a builder. You need to do your contracts right, do all of your insurance right, and so forth before you start building the home, before you finish the home, just like pre-flighting an airplane. You've got to do that up front because if it's 5 years down the road and the home has got $1 million claim and you haven't protected yourself up front, you're out of luck.
There's classes that they can take, whether at their local home builders association level or the National Association of Home Builders level, where they can find this information out. And then those associations are going to, or even at the state level, but those associations will have contacts. They'll have lawyer contacts. They're going to have risk manager contacts. You know, so they have all of this information kind of bundled up. If you need any kind of contact for your business, whether it's just a regular associate member or, just, a lawyer, I guess.
Yeah, we recommend that. Like, Lisa's in Austin, so there's an Austin Home Builders Association. There's a Texas Association of Builders. There's the National Association of Home Builders. So at every level, they have education, they have resources, they have contracts, they'll refer you to the right lawyers and so forth. So use those resources and those contacts. And it's a big thing that we have, like Lisa has. Lisa knows everybody in the state of Texas, so she can refer you to the right people that you want to be talking to.
That's
Yeah,
right. I'm more of a bird dog for
we're
everyone.
starting to know the same people, Lisa, which is kind of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. You're going to be an honorary Texan by the end of the year.
Hey, I've got the boots, man. I got the boots. So, yeah. Let's put this back in the context of a protection builder. If I'm trying to, let's say, protect my margins, reduce my long-term exposure, what would be three things? And I know I'm simplifying, something this big to something this small, but what would be three things that you would tell them to implement immediately? Not now, but right now.
Well, the first thing that I would do, that I do with large builders, is take a review of all of their contracts. And by that, I mean their purchase and sales contract, who's doing their warranty, are they doing it themselves or a third-party warranty? Look at the subcontractor agreement and look at their insurance contracts. That would be the first place that I would go to look at to line that up. Then I'd do more probing to find out, make sure that they have, and I'm sure that they do if they're a large production builder, they're getting good legal advice, the right legal advice, find out who their insurance brokers are, make sure that they're construction experts. Usually you're going to find that large builders who've grown up in the business, they've got that stuff very well covered. But that's the place that I would really start, is looking at all of their contracts.
Yeah, I do have a recommendation. I highly recommend that they get with not just an engineer, they get with a geotech company, they get with a great warranty company that does risk management, a pre-risk management review of their developments, because that's where most of the risk happens, is getting into a bad development. And there's plenty here in the state of Texas. And then getting into the bad development, building in that bad development because the developer told them it was wonderful and cheap lots. And then comes to find out that now all of a sudden they have home after home after home having foundation failure. And if they're self-warranting, that's going to get extremely expensive for them. It's expensive for us too, but at least you have some type of insurance backing you up. And then we partner with our builders just to make sure that they're not going to get into those neighborhoods.
It's sad that some builders or developers are enamored by a project, the potential of that project, but they don't see the dragons that are hiding in the weeds.
Correct.
And they make that commitment to it, and it's not till they're full on into it that they realize, great jump, and I should have stayed at home that day versus putting the money on the table for this. So taking it back to you guys, at what point, and I asked this, but I just want to nail this home. What point do I bring you into the equation? When I'm looking to develop a property, I'm already developing it, I'm already building. Like, is there the perfect scenario that I have to dial 1-800-LISA and James?
The earlier, the better.
As early as possible. Earlier, the better. Absolutely. Now, having said that, I was on the phone earlier today with a large investor builder in the state of Florida, and we found out from them, because we provide the warranties for them. We did not do their insurance, and they had a big snafu on their insurance that just happened. And we jumped in and were able to solve that problem for them this week. So this is something that happened way down the road. We would love to have dealt with this, a year or so ago, but we'll find crises like this where, they had their insurance premium went from $40,000 to $195,000 with no warning and no thought that that was coming. We jumped in and solved that for them. But the short answer is, the earlier we can be involved, the better. We'll get better coverage, better pricing. The contracts will be better. So it's all better. Like you're pre-flight in an airplane, do it up front.
Can I dumb this down and say that there are three components? You've got the insurance, you've got the warranty, and then you have risk. And you guys are trying to step in and protect the production builder in all three categories. Is that fair to say?
Correct. Yes.
Yes.
And we even have services that would get us in between them and the homeowner, and to take the warranty calls, to vet the warranty calls, and then only give them the viable warranty claims. So it minimizes time and effort on their warranty with their warranty people. So, and also when you have a third party company come in to say that's not a viable warranty claim versus the builder saying it, then the homeowner is more likely to accept it.
Is there anything that you offer them right now to get them started? Like when they make that first call, 1-800-LISA and James, do you guys physically show up in your, super cowboy outfits, and then you offer to go through their contracts? Like, is there stuff on the website that they can look at? Like, how does it even start for me as an inquisitive production builder?
It's a lot of meetings. Usually there's a lot of meetings because there's so many different departments with the production builder. And we want to make sure that we're communicating correctly what we have versus what they need. And that's where Jim comes in. I come in. We have other teammates that are experts in their field. And we want to make sure that everybody's getting the correct information.
I want you guys to look into your crystal ball. And I know right now markets are tightening up. We've got costs are increasing. Certain parts of the country, it's even hard to get insurance because companies are either going under or refusing to insure. What do you see is going to unfold over the next 5 years within the industry, but specifically to what you're doing with the whole idea of insurance, warranty, and risk?
Well, to back up on the way that you laid that out. So I would look at it and say that sort of the top of the pyramid in our world would be risk. And then there are several components of risk. So there would be the insurance risk, the warranty risk, the structural risk, the engineering risk. And so what we try to do is take each one of those elements of risk, the risk to subcontractors, and address each one of those. So looking at a crystal ball, if you were to ask me what I see is happening in the next few years, I see interest rates headed down because, change in the Fed and so forth, and our interest rates are simply too high. They need to come back down. I think when rates get into the fives for mortgages, particularly the low fives, I think you'll have some people coming out of the woodwork. In the U.S., I've heard that we are $4 to $6 million homes short of where we need to be, to house our population. So you have pent-up demand out there, and we've had in the last few years some pretty serious headwinds. We had COVID, we had interest rates of 7%, costs are too high, stuff like that. Well, at some point, that dam bursts, and our belief and our hope is that sometime here in the next 2 or 3 years, rather than it bursting and it's just a big cascade, I think we're going to find little better tailwinds, and we're going to find sales are improving, interest rates are improving. I think costs have a chance of coming down somewhat. But you've got that 4 to 6 million home pent-up demand out there, and at some point, we've got to build those homes. So I think that bodes well.
Well, my point of view comes from being on the board at the Texas Association of Builders, and we need all of the builders to be involved in in rallying against legislation that's hurting our communities, creating impact fees, creating codes, unnecessary codes. If we get the bigger builders involved, then, and have that money backing us up, I think we're going to make a lot of headway. But it is amazing how many larger builders are not involved at a state level, backing the associations. So I would like to see that, because we are headed for uncertain times. We have the National Association of Builders has said that people are not having as many children. So we're seeing a population decline. We are seeing things like affordable housing, the supply chain, again, impact fees due to infrastructure that we don't know how to get water over here in Texas. And so that's some of the things that we, need to get production builders again involved with, and get their head out of the sand. If they want to keep on building affordable homes, then help us out at the rallying against legislation.
Oh, yeah. Or even, right at the foundation, we got to get more people into the trades. We have to instill this
Correct.
generation that it's noble to be working with your hands as opposed to staring at a computer screen, coming up with a degree, being in debt, never getting married, never buying a home. Like, they've been sold a bill of goods, boys and girls, and that's
Absolutely.
just awful. To your point about the association, I was just overwhelmed when I first started this podcast and getting into, again, being the token Canadian, but in the American space here, the benefits that you have when you become a member of the National Association of Home Builders, like, at the national level, your local level, the ability to mastermind with my peers from across the country. So I can, what's working for you, so I don't have to pay for the mistakes. I can leverage what you've learned and apply that to my business. I have access to lawyers that are going to help me, not so much with litigation, but to avoid those costly pitfalls. And there's just so much. And to me, it's like a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you want to do that? Or maybe it's the old, was it Woody Allen that said, why would I want to be a member of a club that would have me as a member? Maybe that's it. I'm not sure.
There you go.
Guys, I see the runway up ahead. Is there anything that I've missed that you want to touch on?
I think what you've done is very thorough.
Yeah, I think it was really great. And
Okay.
Very, very, very good questions.
Yes, thank you so much
I'll just give
for
myself
all of
a
it.
pat on the back here.
You
You
should.
can buy me a steak in Texas. Let's do another lane change, and let's make this a bit more fun. I call this rapid fire. And
Okay.
I'll do a set with you, Lisa, then I'll do one with James as well. But rapid fire means I'm just going to ask you a question. Don't think about it. What's the first thing that pops into your head to complete the sentence?
Okay.
Ready for it?
Go.
Okay. What's the most common risk mistake builders make?
Bad contracts.
The one thing builders should never cut corners on is
I say building their foundation.
the smartest builder you've worked with did this differently.
I would say that's Joe Fowler. and he just dived in. He just embraced the Home Builders Association, and everybody goes to him for all sorts of stuff because he just knows everything. Yeah,
Cool.
it's just knowledge.
Okay, one more. One industry myth builders still believe about insurance is?
That we cover everything.
All right. James, I'm going to pull you up to the hot seat right now. When I finally get a rare hour to myself, the one thing I enjoy doing is?
Flying airplanes.
There you go. Okay. The one place that always helps me reset, reflect, and think clearly is?
On the golf course.
All right. A book, a movie, or a quote that stayed with me longer than expected is?
Any movie by the Coen brothers.
Oh, gosh, yes. I'm a big
The
fan.
Big
fan.
Lebowski.
Yeah.
Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou? Classic stuff.
Clooney, so since you brought that up, Clooney initially was supposed to sing the song. And I forgot his name now, the guy that actually did it. Now he's a famous bluegrass player. He was with Alison Krauss.
Yeah.
Dan Kaminsky.
Yeah.
So when they were putting the deal together, they were going to coach Clooney to sing the song. And then Clooney said, you know what if we just license it to you? And then obviously every time that song is played, you're going to get a piece of it. Kaminsky became a multimillionaire because of that agreement that he made with Clooney.
The Soggy Bottom Boys.
Yes, sir. How cool is that? One last question for you, my friend. What a thoughtful gift. As I unwrap the package, to my delight, I found a
brand new set of graphite shaft golf clubs.
I think that more or less does it, kids. Thanks for taking time out today. I really appreciate the time that we spent.
Questions.
That's right. Lisa got the tough ones.
I got the tough ones. All right. That's okay. I can handle tough ones. Yeah.
James, I'm respecting my elders. Chances are I'm probably older than you, so it doesn't matter. Yeah.
And if anybody's in Texas out there and they need to know someone, they can reach out to me anytime, by the way, because I pretty much know everybody.
Lisa is the networking queen of all time. She does know everybody.
Right. And in the show notes, I'll have your bios and things like that. But are there any links that you want them to go to find out more about what you guys do?
I went ahead and sent you the link to our Instagram, our LinkedIn, and our Facebook, and our website. So you should have received that in an email.
Do you want to do a shameless plug right now for the website?
Sure.
That would be your cue to do a shameless plug for the website.
Okay. Come to Maverick, www.maverickbuilders.com and check out our website. I don't know.
That was kind of anticlimactic
Okay, let me do it again. Okay. Let me do it again. Okay.
Come to our booth at SCDC.
Yeah, hold on, Lisa, you got to do the hair fluff.
I know how to do the hair fluff.
Do it right. Okay.
Go to www.maverick-risk.com to see our website and all of the products and services that Maverick offers.
James, is that your final answer?
I would say call me or Lisa, email us, come to any of our webinars, our seminars, come to Sunbelt or SCBC or IBS. We always have a booth there. We're out and about, and all the HBAs know who we are. So easy enough to find out about us, and we'd love to help you.
Great. Lisa, James, thank you so much for participating today and sharing your time and knowledge. And I like to end it off with saying to be continued.
Okay. Sounds good.
You, sir.
Thank you. Let me know if you need anything from us, okay?
You'll be hearing once I touch down for the tab that's coming up at the end of the month. I'll be knocking on your door soon enough.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Bye.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for listening to Builder Straight Talk. Make sure to like, comment, and share this episode on your favorite social media platform. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, available wherever you get your podcast streaming fix. Until next time, keep building smarter. This episode is made possible by our parent company, Sound Capital, funding built for builders.